Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Closing Bell on the Stock Movers Report. The companies making moves at the close of U.S. trading with Carol Massar, Tim Stenovec, Romaine Bostick, and Scarlett Fu.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is going to finish the day in the green, up about 260 points or 0.6%. The S&P down about 0.1%, closing right around that 6,600 level. The NASDAQ Composite and NASDAQ 100 each lower by about 2 to 0.3%. And the Russell 2000 is maintaining some of its gains on the day, higher by 4 points or 0.2%. But we should point out at one point, Carol, it was up a full 2 percentage points.
Got to say, we were thinking about you. We know you like to talk about that index and just kind of watching the move, but certainly a little bit different by the end of the day. Hey, S&P 500 guys, I know you're going to get into the industry groups there, Romaine, but you did have about 288 names actually gaining on this Fed Wednesday, 213 to the downside, 2 unchanged.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, though. I mean, you talk about how do you get 288 names, the majority of the names in the S&P rallying, yet it finishes in the red. Well, a big part of the reason is, well, tech was pretty much at the bottom of that list. As a sector, it was the worst performing of the 11 sectors out there. Your leaders, though, on the day were a lot of the interest rate sensitive sectors, including financials. They were your gainers here on the day. Utilities also getting a pretty strong bid as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of red there, right? When you really kind of break it down in that way. Hey, listen, let's get to some of the individual gainers. Workday, this was a standout in both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. At one point, let me just see, up about 10%, almost 10% at its highs of the session, finishing though still with about a gain of about 7.25%. Company's board authorized a buyback of up to an additional $4 billion worth of shares. And also you had Elliott Investment Management unveiling a $2 billion plus investment in the company. The activist investor saying the company's CEO and his team have made substantial progress in recent years, driving growth and customer retention. They put out a statement yesterday. So investors moving into that one.
And did you take a look at just kind of the long-term chart on this? I mean, just really one of the biggest laggards in this space that we've seen.
No, I know. You're right. A long-term perspective always important on this one, but to see some investor momentum at this point, but that's what an activist investor will do. We'll get investors to take a second look. Hey, Baidu, also an outperformer, finishing pretty much at its best levels of the session. I'm looking at the ADRs, ticker BIDU, finishing up more than 11% in today's session. It is China's largest search engine operator. Overnight, I should point out, shares jumped in Asia, the most in over 2 years, and analysts upgrading the company, citing the growth potential for its in-house chip business. So you had a bunch of analysts coming out. Arete Research Services lifted its rating on Baidu's American ADRs to buy from sell. It had held the only sell recommendation on the stock since it downgraded it last May. So this one, and a bunch of other analysts coming out and weighing in. Everybody's looking at me. I'm a little nervous.
No, you're good.
Okay.
I just feel bad about Krispy Kreme.
Okay, we're going to get to Krispy Kreme. Let's go there.
And by everybody, you meant
this is this is Tim moving me along. Stock was up about 11.5%
That's why I feel bad.
Session.
That's why I feel bad.
Still eking out a gain, but not even a 1 full percentage point.
I'm sorry, Carol. I convinced her to do it, Romaine. I said, you got to do
No, this is
Krispy
a big story.
Kreme.
I know it was a big story.
Absolutely.
FBI
So what's the deal now? The FBI director, what is he? Is he like taking over Krispy Kreme? What's happening?
No, he's got a day job already. And he's also been pretty busy, answering questions from members of Congress. The FBI director, Kash Patel, questioned by one representative before the House Judiciary Committee about stock purchases from a disclosure form he signed in July. He was asked about the transactions, including one in a national coffee house chain. That would be this one. And also one in a semiconductor company. On semiconductor was on the move too, but yeah, I thought we'd highlight this one.
And just 2 quick honorable mentions. Just want to point out PayPal popping about 3% on that partnership with Google. And then, of course, Lyft now at its highest level since 2022, Carol, on news here of that partnership with Waymo.
I'm glad you did Lyft, because now I can talk about Uber. It was the second biggest decliner in the S&P 500.
We didn't even plan this out.
We didn't. We didn't. Down 5% today.
You guys were on TV together this earlier. I'm sure you planned a lot of stuff.
As Romaine mentioned, Lyft is partnering with Waymo to offer robotaxi service in Nashville starting next year. It may sound kind of familiar because Uber has a lot of these deals already. This one is the first one between Waymo and Lyft. Waymo is already an established partner with Uber. These two companies have struck multi-year deals. Back in 2023, Uber now offers Waymo trips in Phoenix, Austin, and Atlanta. So Uber declining on the news that Lyft is now playing with Waymo as well. Also, not all IPOs in the last few weeks doing stellar. Look at StubHub today. Actually fell 6.4% in its debut, falling below the IPO after the ticketing platform raised $800 million in its IPO. The company sold 34 million shares at $23.50, and its market value is about $8.5 billion. That's based on the outstanding shares listed in its earlier findings. And finally, General Mills falling today by 0.8%. Even though the company reported adjusted earnings per share for the fiscal first quarter that topped estimates.
I just want to point out, you mentioned StubHub falling below its IPO price. We should point out Gemini Space, which went public last week at $28 a share, opened at $37, closing below that $28 price at $24 and change here on this Wednesday afternoon. We are expecting some earnings, I believe, out of Cracker Barrel. They are crossing the wire right now. Let's take a look. Of course, a company that has been in the spotlight mainly for political and culture war reasons. Well, this is a bottom line story, and the bottom line is a miss. 74 cents a share in the most recent quarter. The street was looking for 76 cents a share. The revenue did come in above estimates at about $868 million. Here's the company's guidance going forward for 2026, which is basically the fiscal year that they are in right now. They say that revenue will be in a range of $3.35 to $3.45 billion. The high end of that range below the average of analyst estimates of $3.52 billion.
All right, I'm looking through the press release, and yes, there is commentary on the logo controversy. It's the first thing and pretty much the only thing that's mentioned at the top. Julie Masino, the company's president and CEO, said, quote, "We thank our guests for sharing their voices and their passion for Cracker Barrel in recent weeks. And we've listened, switching back to our old-timer logo, hitting pause on remodels and placing even bigger emphasis in the kitchen and other areas that enhance the guest experience. Many elements of our plan are working well and delivering results."
Well, I got to say, this is a stock
nightmare is over.
That is heavily shorted. About 25% of the float is shorted. So on any, you'll see some activity maybe coming off of these earnings, that's for sure.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.